Hi, I'm Nikki, the Obsessive Bookseller. Welcome to this episode of Read Reading to be Read for December 2024. I have a lot of page count over the last month, which is surprising to me because I've been hella busy. But starting off, I finished Monstrous Nights by Genoveva Dimova. This is book 2 and the final book in the Witch's Compendium of Monsters series, which I loved. It's out this year. First one was called Foul Days. It's gonna make my favorites of the year list. So enjoyable. It kind of appeals to a variety of people. I think the urban fantasy crowd will get a kick out of it, but I also think that those who like kind of low fantasy, it's a great one. I thought the characters were great. The relationship development in this one was one of the best that I've seen. This author has earned my trust, and I can't wait to see what she produces next. It will definitely be an auto buy. Ending this one particular about 4 out of 5 stars. Maybe rounded up, I'm not sure yet, but I really enjoyed it. Read for Project Read Burn Horde, a new acquisition, Somewhere Beyond the Sea by TJ Klune, and I don't regret buying it because I really loved the first one and I like that they go together. I think this cover is really gorgeous. I love the sprayed edges. This one didn't hit for me. The first one had a really good balance of that like sentimental, warm, found family type of vibes mixed in with kind of the more negative stuff about the world that they live in. This one to me really focused on all the negative stuff. It felt like a very angry book to me. I'm not saying it's not justifiable, but from a purely me enjoying the book standpoint, I was stressed through most of this book. And so I came away from it having read some good moments, some good 5-star moments, mixed in with about a 2-star experience. And I wish it had had the same balance that the first one had. And I think a lot of it might be because the novelty factor. So in the first one, you're meeting a whole bunch of new people. In this one, that's limited to a degree because it's already an established world. And so it took away that discovery factor, I think, that made the first one give it more balance. So landing on this one, I'd say a 2.5 out of 5 stars. It was better than just okay. It was a good book, but I'm not sure that I liked it. Northern Storm by Juliet McKenna. This is book 2 in the Aldebrushian Compass series, and I've got nothing but good things to say about the first book. It was superb. There was awesome character work, really cool world building. That's my favorite draw to the series so far. It's kind of in an archipelago with a whole bunch of really exotic settings and creatures and whatnot, and good politics. Oddly, because of all these cultures that are kind of intermingling down there. This one took a bit of an odd direction, and after finishing the book, I realized it's kind of a setup book. It's establishing some things that are going to kind of hopefully careen us through the rest of the series, but to me it lacked some of the other components that made the first book so good. Practically no politics in this one. Practically no world building or setting immersion. I feel like it was really focused on said cover image and not a lot else. But it did a good job establishing the lore, and I thought for a dragon book, it was a really good dragon book. I love the more bestial dragons rather than the ones that are like giant winged talking humans, if that makes sense. So this one, a 3-star read. The first one was a 5-star. Still have really good feelings about the series so far, and I can't wait to see there's something on the winds for what's to come that I am really excited to get to. I finished my reread of Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson just in the nick of time. Wind and Truth came out yesterday, and it makes it sound like I read this entire book since my last update. No, I've been on this thing for like 3 months. I missed a buddy read because of it, but so worth it because I hit the ground running with Wind and Truth. And I know that a lot of the things that I forgot, if I had started Wind and Truth without having done this reread, I would have been totally lost. I wouldn't have remembered crap. So really good reread. This one gets a lot of flack, and I can see why. The pacing is a bit odd. We went from jumping around POVs constantly in the first 3 books in a really good, satisfying pace to sticking with the same couple people in the same setting for really, really long time. By contrast, it almost seems to drag. That being said, my personal experience with it, I can see the weakness in that regard, but I am eating up every single page, and every single dialogue scene, every single new revelation, all of the technical stuff. Like, I love it so much. So this did not feel like a slog. If anything, I think I enjoyed it the second time around even more. And still one of my all-time favorite series. I cannot wait to get further into the next one because I'm only like 3 chapters in. But reread that. By the way, if you haven't read Stormlight Archive, I know, you've been badgered already. But if you've been following my channel for any length of time, consider how regimented I am with my reading schedule and how difficult it is for me to get to the things already on my plate. And yet I am completely at peace and perfectly content to pick up this 1,000-page behemoth on a reread. Like, who does that? I'm crazy, but it was awesome. So needed. And it didn't feel like I read a 1,200-page book. I don't know how he does it, because I've gotten impatient 100 pages into a 300-page book. But somehow 300 pages into this and it feels like I barely even scratched the surface and I'm just content to keep reading. It's magic. Give it a try. I also picked up a couple of nonfiction this month because it's been a really stressful month, and I find fiction, especially fiction that requires concentration, is not a great way for me to give my brain something to do to keep me distracted from being stressed. So I read nonfiction for that. Plus, I'm just really fascinated with some of the productivity / lifestyle stuff that I've been picking up lately. One of which was Attention Span by Gloria Mark. Apparently this is like the OG of the attention economy discussion. And I first heard about her through Cal Newport's work because on his podcast for Slow Productivity, he references her a lot. And I can see why. This book, Attention Span, is very much all about the referential, experimental, laboratory work on your attention that has been done, usually facilitated by Gloria Mark and some of her colleagues. Like, this woman really knows her stuff. However, if you are going into this looking for some practical application tips, you are in the wrong place. I got about 75% through the book and I was like, okay, like, all of this is interesting. Most nonfiction front load with all of the facts and the research, and then they spend the rest of the book giving you some practical tips. This one, 75% in, I'm like, okay, where are we getting to the part where I can actually apply this to my life overtly? Like, there were things that I read that I extracted and I did apply to my life, but it's not because she was like, hey, this is a good suggestion. It's because I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about email in that way. Let me try it with this new mentality around how addictive email is. Whatever. So I'm loving the book. Really interesting. Would be excellent as like a research resource. But then around like near the end of the book, when nothing really practical had been explained, I started to find myself getting a little grouchy with it. Like, well, all this build up and no payoff. And there was a tiny little section where she was talking about how to make changes. It was like someone who has never struggled with depression telling a depressed person, just be happy. It's that simple. So if you are addicted to your devices, just stop giving in to the impulse to check them. It's that easy. And I'm over here going, okay, simple does not equate easy. There's a whole bunch of things you got to work through that apparently go beyond the scope of this particular nonfiction book. So I didn't quite get out of it what I hoped for, but I don't regret having read it. So let's say 3 out of 5 stars. Cal Newport's Digital Minimalism is by far the best resource I've read on it. It kind of digs into the intentionality of why you're using your devices and digs a little deeper into just the addictive nature of them. I read Sugarless by Nicole Avina. Health and lifestyle has been something I've been dabbling in. I love cooking, and I have been trying to pull myself off sugar since I had gestational diabetes with my last child. It has been really difficult because of the addictive, again, quality of sugars in our food and how prevalent they are. And I was just curious because she made it sound like on all of the promotional material that the book was a really good resource for kind of helping you overcome those cravings essentially and to kind of moderate your lifestyle to make better decisions. And happy to report that I thought the book was an excellent resource. I'm a little bit further along in my journey than I think the book would have helped me for, but if I were just starting out on this journey, she is like, I've seen a whole bunch of things where it's like very cut and dry. You're either on the healthy side where you're not doing any of that stuff or you're not. And this was like a really good moderation way to kind of ease yourself over there. It's all about micro decisions that kind of add up. And it takes time. It takes so much time to modify anything about your diet and your habits. So I thought this was great, and she wasn't like cut or dry. She was very, very practical, easily to implement steps to her system. I thought it was great. Good resource. Another one, The Little Book of Hygge by Miek Wiking, and I know I'm saying that wrong, but he is the head of the Institute for Happiness Research in Copenhagen, Denmark. And I've already been kind of enamored with the Danish lifestyle because I just think it's fascinating after I read A Year of Living Danishly. And they talked about hygge in there, and I really kind of latched on to the hominess feel, the happiness feel. In contrast, sugar and treats are a very big part of hygge. So I've got two very contrasting reads this month, which I love. Balance. It's all about balance. In any case, I love like the warminess created in people's homes in Denmark to survive these long winters, and how it's about the relationships between people. And if you don't know, the Danish are considered some of the happiest people on the planet. While I don't want to swing completely Danish because they're a little bit extreme for me in some cases, like I really like the basic philosophy of establishing this very hygge lifestyle, especially when it comes to the home. So that was a fun read. Let's talk about currently reading here. So I don't have my copy of Wind and Truth yet, so I still have this like awkward little placeholder, but I have started. I'm going the audiobook route because Michael Kramer and Kate Redding are the bomb. They're my favorites, and so far it's been great. I am trying not to rush this read because I read Rhythm of War so fast because I was trying to complete it for Audiophile magazine. I was the one writing the review for that one. And I think because of that, I really didn't retain a lot of it. So I am content to take my time with Wind and Truth. And so far, it's just been an absolute delight. Even like 3 chapters in, there's been a few revelations, and I'm already like, oh, it's so exciting. This is the end of the first arc of the series. It's going to be a 10-book series, but like this should feel really satisfying, finally conclusive. And I can't wait to sit with it. It's a really long book. But because of my poor time management, I'm also reading a couple of other things before that one came out that I didn't quite finish. One of them being Charon's Claw. Reading this for my incomplete series challenge, and it's been a really long time since I've gotten back to Drizzt. And one of the things, I hate this Neverwinter series. It's like a 4-book series, books 20, I don't know, 24 to 28, somewhere in that range. That's not accurate. But I haven't liked these because it spends an inordinate amount of time getting into these villains' POVs. Just within the first, this is book 3, and just within the first couple of prologue and couple of chapters, I've had to reread so much stuff just so I understand which villain is which, because there were over a dozen new characters on the villain side introduced. And to me, it feels excessive because, you know, they're just cannon fodder. Like, what's the point of this? I feel like he's wasting my time, and I want to get back to the main character here. And finally, at about the 30% mark, we finally start getting back into that. And oh yeah, this is why I like the series. But I will be very happy to leave this one behind. It's been my least favorite of the Drizzt saga so far. It's written better than Icewind Dale, but Icewind Dale was like it laid the groundwork for everything that was to come. So even though it was it felt more poorly written compared to the rest of them, I still basically enjoyed it. This one, written well, but I'm just like, eh. But I am enjoying it. I'm really glad that challenge got me back into the series because I needed a kick in the butt. There was a point in time where I was only like 2 books behind, and now I'm like, there's over 40. I've got 15 books at least to read. I've let it get that far ahead of me. So, yeah, approaching, I don't know, I think I'm a little further than this. Maybe closer to the halfway mark, but this is going to take a back seat to the Sanderson, and then I will hopefully pick it up and try to finish it by the end of the month. But then in total contrast, an absolute delight, Happy Place by Emily Henry. I'm about halfway through this one. I love Emily Henry. I love it. I'm not sure where this one will rank compared to the rest of them. It will depend on where it goes and how it ends. But this is one of those authors where I haven't felt this way in a while, where I'm approaching having read everything she has out, at least recently. So this one, and then I have Funny Story, And then I'm feeling that anxiety, like I better read these more slowly because they're going to be, like, I won't have anything else to read from her if I finish them. And I don't know if I can handle that because these have been such a joy. But this one so far, I really like the concept. I love all the characters. And as with any Emily Henry, the real beauty is within the main character's relationship with the other people in their life, not specifically on the love interest, if you will. Like, all of the relationships feel special, and that's why these books feel so realistic and they feel so heartwarming, and I love it. I love it so much. This one in particular has gotten me to laugh out loud more than the others. So far it's the funniest book. Loving it. And let's talk about my TBR. I would be surprised if wrapping up these three, like these two and then Wind and Truth, didn't take me the entire month. But I also have committed to reading A Practical Guide to Conquering the World. Are you sick of seeing this on my TBR yet? I've just been struggling to fit this one in because it's a short read and it's a guaranteed good read, but then I keep adding in all of these challenges and random nonfiction reads and it sets me behind schedule. But I'm hoping to finish this one out by the end of the month, and I really think I can do it. I'm gonna make it my before bed read. So it kind of feels separated out from all of the other audiobook stuff I have going on, and I can really enmesh with it. So looking forward to that one. And then my ultimate shame, Speaking Bones still hasn't, like, I made an attempt at it for my patrons because I was reading it as a buddy read with my patrons. One I facilitated setting up. It's the final book in the Dandelion Dynasty series. I really want to have a moment with it. But can I have a moment with this if I'm also having a moment with Stormlight Archive? I can't do both at the same time. I just can't. Like, it would be unfair to both, and I would feel so disconnected. And there's so much going on that my poor little pea brain cannot handle it right now. But assuming I get through Wind and Truth and all of my other things, I really want to finish this out before the end of the year. That would be great. But I imagine this is going to be my January read. But seeing as this video series is not, like, dictated by a calendar month, there's a good chance I'll have made some progress in it by the time of my next update, which is why I am mentioning it. Blacklight Born came out this month, and I feel so bad for this book because Stormlight Archive, but I really loved Combat Codes. Griever's Blood, the second book, wasn't quite as good, but Combat Codes was amazing, and I am invested enough in this to see how the series ends. I'm super excited for it. I have a really nice edition from Broken Binding on its way, and I doubt I'm going to get around to it, but it's an honorable mention because you never know, and I'm quite excited for it. And then I also want to read, because I need some sort of nonfiction going. I just bought a whole bunch of nonfiction on Audible's annual Black Friday, Cyber Monday sale or whatever, and the one I picked up because I was still several months out as a wait time at my library is Meditations for Mortals by Oliver Berkman. This is one of my gurus. I love 4,000 Weeks, and this is kind of a companion novel, so that one was more philosophical to make you get in the right mindset of accepting your finitude and planning accordingly. Whereas this one, it's like practical application. Oh my gosh, and it's a whole book on it, so I can't wait. This is one of those where I'm like David Allen's getting things done. I know I'm going to have a real moment with it. I know I'm going to just want to bask in it. So I would like to read that within the next month. And I can't wait. But I'm hesitant to pick it up because I know everything else is going to take a back seat while I do it. Because it's a new feature, I always seem to forget to include my Audible challenge. So I'm running an Audible 3-for-1 challenge, meaning I need to read 3 books out of my Audible library before I'm allowed to buy another one. Now, I knew the holiday season was going to be a challenge for me because every year around Cyber Monday, Audible does this amazing sale where everything is like, I don't know, between $2 and $5. So less than half the cost of a credit. And you'll be proud of me. There are years where I've come away from that sale having bought like 60 books. Yeah, that's a lot. So this time around, I actually showed some restraint, picked up a few nonfiction that aren't available at my library, and one series, but this is gonna mess up my numbers. I haven't gotten my piece of paper out and done the official tally, but it's gonna throw me off. I'm aware of this. So let's take a look at the new things that I've picked up. Obviously, I bought Wind and Truth. And this kind of stuff, this purchasing to read right away thing, does not bother me whatsoever. So Wind and Truth, I am currently reading this one. This is a monster of an audiobook. It's like 62 hours long, and it's amazing so far. Loving it. Also picked up The Humor Habit by Paul Osincup. So I really like the idea of taking some humor strategies, like finding a way to see the light in things. I tend to carry myself way too seriously most days. So this one was only like $2 or $3. I figured it was worth a risk on it. This one, however, Meditations for Mortals by Oliver Burkeman, is one of my all-time favorite writers. I love his 4,000 Weeks books. And this one was available at the library, but it was going to be a several-month wait. I only moved up like 5 positions in line after having it on hold for almost 2 months. So it's a very short book. It's only 4 hours long, but it's like gold. I cannot wait to get to this one. Open by Nate Klemp. This is kind of an attention economy type of book where it's talking about like distractibility and how to not be distracted, essentially. And it's a topic that I've read pretty deeply on so far. I've read Indistractable, I've read The Shallows, I've read Digital Minimalism, 24/6. There's so many books on this. I'll probably do a video at some point kind of ranking them, just because I'm really interested in it. But this was just another cheap introduction, and I'm hoping, like, I've taken a little bit of information from each one, and I'm hoping that eventually I'll have like a really good system based of all these little details. So I'm hoping there's something in there that I haven't read before. Rise Above the Story: Free Yourself from Past Trauma and Create the Life You Want. I tend to hang on to things and kind of live in the past a little bit. Therapy has been really helpful, as long as being in like kind of a recovery program from trauma. But I thought the book was really interesting. I want to see kind of if there's any other tools to kind of let things go, and particularly regarding triggers. Very interested to see how people can get beyond triggers and kind of focus on the life they have right now. And then books 2 and 3 of the Wimbrel House series. Let's see, down here a little bit. I found the first one. This one seems interesting. It looks like a multicast narration. All 3 books were available for the price of 1 credit. This was my only buy that I was like, I'm not sure if I should pick that up right now because I have no intention of starting it anytime soon. And my library doesn't have a copy. But chances are by the time I get around to it, my library will have a copy. But yeah, that was my one whoopsie. I think I could have done without that one. Someday is Today by Matthew Dix. I saw this guy doing an interview on Ali Abdal's podcast channel, and I really loved the whole thing about his philosophy. So it's in contrast actually with Oliver Burkeman's like work one thing at a time. This guy's like do everything you can right now because you may not get the chance. So I love the conflicting philosophies, and I'm hoping to take a little bit from both. This one was free for Audible members for a long time, but I missed listening to it in that time frame, so now there's no rush. And then along those same lines, Refuse to Choose. Essentially, like, don't limit how many passions that you want to work on at once. Kind of give yourself, I'm assuming it's going to give me a strategy on how to tend to everything, which I love. I love that kind of stuff. I also picked up Project Hail Mary, which many of you have told me is totally rad. And then Artemis. These are Audible only narrations, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to get to them this year. So I was kind of hedging my bet and getting a little prepared with that. And then The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. I don't really suffer with a lot of writer's block, but this one was one of the least expensive ones on here, and it had come highly recommended. I love reading about people's artistic processes and any way that they make creation easier to accomplish. So that's why I picked that one up. And then I may have mentioned this in the last video, I cannot remember, but I also bought Somewhere Beyond the Sea by TJ Klune because new release, was reading it with some buddies, already finished the book, so it counts against me because it was a purchase, but it was read read immediately. You know, maybe I need to adjust the rules a little bit. Like if I purchase something and then listen to it immediately, it does not count towards my overall purchase goal. I think that makes the most sense to me, because most of the purchases that I have against me are these ones that I've read, and I actually don't think I've purchased many beyond that. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I am going to restructure. I was almost to the end of that piece of paper anyway. So next video I will have redesigned everything, and I don't know if I'm going to count all of these nonfiction against me, because nonfiction is kind of separate in my mind, but I'm definitely counting the three, like the trilogy that I bought. So I need to reconfigure it. We'll hit the ground running in 2025. I'll probably start fresh from there and continue on. But so far, the habits that I've been building from being accountable to you guys has been super helpful. So anyway, grand total of 14 books purchased and 2 read. That was a lot of stuff. I've been having a ton of fun reading still. I've been following the spirit of my challenges and managing to read really quality books through those. I really love Read, Burn, Hoard and curating my collection, and I'm slowly building this jar, this like pool of possibilities that I'm going to draw from eventually once I feel like I get my outstanding series like whittled down a little bit more. And by a little bit more, I mean more than nothing, which is the progress I've made on it so far, even though I've been trying. Anyway, I would like to know what books have been highlights for you over the past month or so, and are you also joining the Wind and Truth craze train? Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye.